All right, Johnny. Welcome back to another episode. How are things?
I just got a prep to say the meeting is being recorded. Continue if or leave meeting if you don't consent. But
Yeah,
luckily for you, I definitely consent.
thank
So
you.
here we are.
This just went sexual very quickly. Documented consent to proceed.
I guess. Anyway, I have had kind of a rough week with a lot of dumb stuff
Hmm.
with the borough where a lot of my buildings are. They're just on a tear with their code enforcement nightmares.
Hmm.
I tore down a whole ceiling in a basement this past week. I helped my handyman do that because apparently half the basement it's separated into like two basement rooms.
Yeah.
One side didn't have a ceiling. The other side had like a drywall plus plaster lath ceiling,
Hmm.
mostly plaster lath, unfortunately. And the
Of course.
fire marshal came in and he was like, well, you need to either replace this with drywall on the other side and make it match this side. And well, that's what he said originally. He said we needed to hang two sheets of fire rated drywall in the whole basement, which
Wow.
the building's 120 years old. This isn't some new construction
Yeah.
place. Um, Also not necessary. Like totally. I told the guy, I was like, look, you better be getting some kickbacks from like a drywall company because every building in this whole borough is going to need this because I've literally never seen one that has what you're asking for. So big off, buddy. And then I got a hold of the fire chief because it was one of the underlings that did the inspection. Fire chief said, well, you can make a match. And I was like, so you want me to tear down the ceiling then so that they match? And he's like, well, that would work.
Yeah.
And then I looked up the code and everything, and it's kind of a stretch, but can't fight the government. So
Not if you expect to win.
not
Boy.
if you're like some just local landlord guy. But
Yeah. That's a key to dealing with the code enforcement people is turning off your brain and just being in a problem solving mode of like, how do I get out of this maze as fast as possible?
while that was tearing down the ceiling was getting
Yeah.
out of it, and it's just stupid. But
Yes, it is.
I recorded it and I'm gonna show it to the guy when I get there. We're gonna have to reattach all the electrical wires that were like above the ceiling. We're gonna have to rehang lights, rehang exit signs, restrap plumbing, all this stuff. And I'm sending it to him. And I donate to the fire department. And I'm basically just telling him, like, look, man, count it as my donation for this year because this was bull. Like, get out of
Oh,
here. So,
well,
kind of in not a great mood, but
yeah, that's lame.
such is life. How about you? What are you doing?
I'm on vacation, so I'm in a good
Oh,
mood. Yeah,
there you go.
yeah.
Anyway, we speaking of upgrading stuff like that, today we want what I wanted to go over. We're coming up on summer, so every time summer comes up, there's usually a lot of renewals for
Yeah.
tenants. Um, so we're just going to go over a couple tips for how to handle renewals. Not at all exhaustive. There's a whole bunch of little odds and ends, but we'll just give you a few, give the listeners a few things to go by. Um, Bonus tip for the tips start
Whoa.
is is that your renewals should be happening now,
Yeah.
even if it's less than a year or whatever. You usually want to line up your renewals to be in the summer. So even if you, especially in like an area where there's a cold winter, so even if you're renting your place in September, it's best practice to give them an expiration sometime in July and August, even though that's less than a year. So, and then tell the people when they sign their lease that in August or in July or June, they'll be given a year extension after that, assuming they're all nice boys and girls and behave. So, yeah. Anyway, I guess we'll just get into it. So, what's your, you have anything that you do that helps.
Yeah, well, we do what you just said. So we'll do like a 16-month lease if it means wrapping a lease up about nowish when the flowers are blooming and all kinds of nice things that help. Um, Actually, to steal one from you, since we're just getting started, we actually offer our tenants like a kind of a retention bonus slash clause where we say if there's something you'd like to improve in the property that's less than or equal to $300, let us know, and we will try and make an improvement. And it's really nice, kind of as an offer. They actually tend not to take us up on it, which is fascinating. Um, and It just seems to win a lot of goodwill. They're like, "Oh, I appreciate that." No, we're good. It's very
Hmm,
bizarre, but it's been great. I recommend it.
that's useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do that as well. Some examples of that have been we've like removed cabinets and put hookups for a dishwasher in. Tenant
Mm.
will purchase the dishwasher. Um,
Hmm.
we've given people like air conditioning units in the places that don't have central air, so they might
Yeah.
get to window units. We've done lights over the sink or like lights over the stove, stuff like that. Added bonus for me too is that since you're making improvements when they do leave, you usually have like a slightly better unit versus trying to cram all the upgrades into, I don't know, short span of time. And if you give them that thing with the dishwasher, like nobody's taking their dishwashers, so you basically get a free dishwasher from the tenant, which is kind of cool, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's kind of an excuse to get the handyman in there. It's like, if you're like,
check it
"Hey, we
out.
want to do these things," it's like, "Oh, this is inconvenient." But if it's like, "Oh, I'd really like a bath fan," it's like, "Yeah, sure, we can make that happen." You know,
Yeah, that's a good
nice.
idea too. That's a good hidden thing.
How about you?
Um, so one thing, I actually don't do the upgrades too much anymore now that we've had more like apartment building type things. I used to do it whenever I was like Tony, Mr. Landlord, like uh friendly guy that just owns the building, that sort of thing. I used to do it. But now that there's way more units, we don't really do it anymore. But one thing that we do is we send them like a rent report for market rent
Hmm.
whenever we send the lease renewals. So we'll pull something from Rent-A-Meter and print it out and say like, your new rent, say it was $1,000, now it's 1050 or whatever, but market rent for a 3-bedroom unit or 2-bedroom or whatever in your area is 1200 or 1250. So then they see like, I could leave, but I'm really getting a good deal here. And, you know, sometimes we have to mess with the space to make it make sense. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm gonna make it make sense, right? But at the same time, it's just a piece of paper that they get like a report, kind of like a the car dealership thing. That's kind of where I got the
Mm,
idea from. Like when you go to buy a car, they say these are all the same cars for sale in the area. So
yeah. And I don't know if you have any properties like this, but do you have anything that is like more luxury? Like, would you ever give something that's like, this is the average rent, but you have a plus kind of a, do you have that
Ye-
property type?
I don't really do too much in A class real estate, so no.
Yeah.
We stick pretty much in the middle, like B class type properties.
Yeah, me too.
Um, so I don't, but that's something that you could do. Like if you were on the high end, instead of a report, you could probably, break it down a little bit more. Or if the argument didn't suit what you were going for, you could just not include it if you didn't want to. But I like to do it and send it out. So
Yeah, I think you can still juice the numbers with like other luxury only, don't
yeah,
pull it from
of course.
Rent-A-Meter. Do a little homework, which you should be doing anyway, right? As you set your rent.
Yep.
That's a cool one. We haven't done that, but we probably should, because we're definitely below market. um, I guess another thing we do is we try and kind of habituate our tenants to expect that there will always be some rent increase. So, we never just do like no increase. We always do at least 15, $20, just to kind of set the expectation like the world just only gets more expensive, uh, you know, like especially if we pay water. So like in one of our
Mhm.
properties, we pay water sewer. So, we just try and make sure that there's always an expectation that like, hey, things are gonna go up. It's, that way it's not like no, nothing, 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 a big whatever, because no one even bats an eye at $15, but like $50 for some reason is like this, a conversation in our experience. So that's worked out well for
Yeah,
us.
that makes sense. Along those lines too, one of the things that we do when we set an increase like $50 or even 15 or whatever is throughout the year we will look at like what costs have increased. So for instance, one of the boroughs that our buildings are in sent there was an article that came out that said like next year we'll be increasing taxes by whatever percent. So if I see something like that, I'll grab the document, scan it or pull it from the internet, print it out, include it in their package. Same thing with like water. The water company always sends like next year the water expense will go up this or that. Materials have been skyrocketing, like lumber's up, I think, a gigantic percentage. Electrical wire doubled. All the sheet metal went up by like 50% for HVAC. Like all the costs really went up. So I pulled like a report for that stuff. Found just an article that talks about the increase and included that. And then I usually just write like a cover letter with the renewal that says, we're increasing your rent, $50 or whatever because of these reasons.
Mhm.
And I think that it doesn't work for everyone. Some people are just, they don't get it and whatever. I mean, same thing with like insurance, like they increase your insurance and you bitch every time. but but it's nice whenever they have like an explanation that kind of pacifies some people where they're like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, I get it. It does occasionally work, but I usually include that in the package too, because that helps, like I said, kind of explain to them why you're doing it.
Yeah, cool. I
No,
like that
just
one.
because you're some greedy psychopath. Yeah.
So far, your advice is find supporting evidence and then send it to your tenants.
Could have been one tip, huh?
No, it's just like, yeah. Basically, I'm imagining myself as your tenant, and my rent's gonna go up like $15, and then you send me like 15 sheets of paper. It's like, look, this is fair.
You get a
Uh,
brochure
yeah, no, it's
and
very,
like
very
PowerPoint
professional.
slides.
Yeah. I think the other thing we've been doing is I think our tenants have like a 30 or 60-day notice in their lease. So they must tell us that they plan to renew. Um, and then they actually have to tell us another 30 days before that pops up so that we can do an inspection with them. So that's a nice way for us to like basically, steal an extra 30 days out of the exchange in case they decide they do want to leave and we have a lot more time to renew and really to assess like any damage and any back and forth that has to happen there. So that's really worked out well for us too, just in terms of planning the turnover and because we are trying to stack all the turnover in this like 3 to 4 month window. Having that heads up is great, especially as our unit count goes up.
Yeah, and then you can plan accordingly. If the unit's in good shape, you can start marketing it before they leave,
Yeah, if you need to
all
hire
that kind
somebody
of
right
stuff.
now, like, I mean, you
Yeah,
need time to get
get
somebody.
it in their workflow before the person's gone, which is good. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, I mean,
it's
you
a
can't
good
get
tip.
a painter in there next week. It takes like 4 weeks right now.
Not unless that's an expensive painter or somebody
Yeah.
that owes you a favor.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's cool. That's a great tip. Um, the last thing that I have for the show, even though there's a bunch of other
There's always
weird
more, everybody.
stuff that we do, um, we give options. So we write like
Hmm.
for a year lease, your rent will be 1050. For a 6 month lease, your rent will be 1150. For a month to month lease, your rent will be 1250. So we give them three options. Some tenants, when they leave, they want like maybe they're looking for a house or they want to test their options. Um, the only caveat to that is that we will only do month to month for like a certain period. So they're excluded from being allowed to terminate in October, November, December, January, February. So like if we'll give them the month to month through say like the end of October, and we tell them like if you're not renewing for 6 months or a year at the end of October, then we're terminating the lease and you got to find somewhere else. Um,
Hmm.
but they will then, if they renew for 6 months, they'll go to the 6 month rate. If they renew for a year, they'll go to the year rate. So it's not like we keep them at the month to month rate for, the whole time. So
Yeah. Cool. That's a really interesting idea.
yeah, and we have most tenants just take the year, but we have had people check the month to month box, and then we end up making a couple hundred more dollars because of the added risk to us that they'll just leave with 30 days notice. So
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Like especially if somebody's trying to get a house or whatever, it makes sense. Like, yeah, I'll try and shop this summer. Interesting.
yep.
Cool. Very cool.
All right. Well,
Nice
that's
tips.
that. Yeah. So
All right.
anything you learned this week?
Oh boy, you go first. I haven't thought about this.
I learned that the closer and closer the eviction moratorium comes to expiring, the more and more people have been
Nice to.
trying to make up their past due rent. Yeah.
Uh,
Funny how a little flame to the feet really gets people motivated to pay you.
yeah, I would say for me, the thing I learned, this is, the same as we always say, remembered, learned, whatever, is when someone tells you something with a lot of words. So they tell you this very like long version of the story. I'm going to be there at 7 in the morning and I always do that. This is how I do it. They're not going to do any of that. So the more
That's
they
true.
assert something is true, the less likely they are to do it. And I've experienced that with contractors, with tenants. So, the best is they don't even tell you they're going to do it. They just do it. But the more they tell you they're going to do it, in my experience, it's very unlikely they're going to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Cool. All right. Well, where can they find out more about us?
we are Be Free RE. We're in Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts, BeFreeRE.com.
Don't
And
we have a new feed or something? And you tell me you updated the website? You
uh,
did.
yeah, I mean, we have BeFreeRE.com. That's what I just said.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah. And 412-212-8366 as always. And then Tony, you can let them know the socials.
Yeah. I'm at 412 agent on Instagram. You can find me on Bigger Pockets, Anthony Angotti. My website's 412agent.com, Facebook /412 agent, Zillow 412 agent, maybe, or TDA. I don't know. One or the other. You can find me by my name. So wherever your real estate needs are located, you can find me. Other than Redfin, Zumper, all the other things I don't manage. So
All
there we
right.
are.
As long as your needs are on one of those places I mentioned, you'll be fine.
Indeed.
All
Well,
right.
peace out. So
So,
I'll see you later.
see ya.